Hello, and welcome to the stream tonight. Sorry that things were a little bit late. I'm a couple of minutes late tonight, which certainly wasn't my intention. I clicked the go button, and things didn't quite go. So there was a slight delay there, but everything should be up and running now. So let's jump in, I guess. Thank you all for coming along. Tonight's stream is going to be slightly different to the ones we've done previously. So the last few streams have all been centered around the creation of a new Visual Studio Code extension, and that work's not finished. I still need to complete that work. However, rather than have another stream dedicated to that topic, I thought we'll have a little bit of a break and come back to that either on the next stream or the one after that. The thought process around tonight's stream was to start looking at a thing called PoshBot. So we'll get into that in a bit. A couple of housekeeping things I want to talk about. The stream that I did on Friday lunchtime seemed to go down quite well. Lots of people came along, and it seemed like it worked. It worked for me in terms of just making use of my Friday lunchtime to get a few things done. So I'm going to keep going with that on a Friday lunchtime. So that's Friday 12 p.m. So lunchtime to 1 p.m. GMT. Again, it'll just be a continuation of the what I've been working on and what I'm concentrating on. It'll just be another slot to do some more work on it. Some of you will have noticed that I have been granted some new permissions, new functionality from Twitch, and I have now the ability to make people VIPs in the chat room. So there's a few VIPs in the chat room so far. I don't really know what that gets you, I'll be honest. I can see that you've now got like an additional thing, a marker against your name, I guess, in the chat. So I'd be interested to know what that gives you and whether it's useful. I think I've got another 3 slots available. So if anybody wants to be a VIP in my chat room, feel free to reach out and I will certainly pass that on. I know that who was it? I think it was Manfred that mentioned it when he came into the chat room. I assume you got notified when you came into the chat. So thank you for coming along to my chats on my streams on a regular basis. I do appreciate it, and the VIPs have been awarded based on people who turn up and participate in the stream. So thank you very much. I've set the ball in motion for getting another person to come and join me on the stream at some point. I know I've spoken about getting Matthias, who's in the chat room, onto a stream already, and we just need to thrash out exactly what that topic's going to be. But I've also got another potential person coming along to talk around this more finer detail about setting up for doing a stream and the innards of what you can do to set things up and things you can do with things like Streamlabs and all that sort of stuff. It's really an area that I've not really played with yet. So I'm really curious about how that can be set up, and the guest, if it all happens, will be able to talk us through all of that. So the reason I've got this open in the background is, if you don't know about it already, this is kind of where to find out about the upcoming stream topics and what I'm going to be talking about. So the first couple of ones, the next couple of ones are in here. So this is the current one, which is the one we're on just right now, and the next one on Friday will be a continuation of the Visual Studio Code extension. So that's kind of where we're going to go to. Is that delay to give mods time to ban some messages? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine, Maurice. I genuinely don't know. So let's learn together in that area. Okay, so tonight, what we're talking about? We're talking about this thing called PoshBot. So what is PoshBot? Has anyone in the chat room played with PoshBot yet? I'm actively using it at work for a few things. It's really quite clever. It's written by a gentleman by the name of Brandon Olin, who's known as Dev Black Ops on Twitter, on GitHub, and all those sorts of things. It's really quite clever. So it's a chat ops system. So it's written in PowerShell, but it no, there's no but there. It's written in PowerShell. It's a chatbot written in PowerShell. So what does that mean? What is a chatbot? So a chatbot is something that will sit in some sort of front-end user interface. So it could be Slack, it could be Microsoft Teams, it could be Gitter, it could be whatever the front end is. And the idea is that you have a series of commands that you can provide to the bot, and the bot will respond to those commands. So it's not a new idea. The concept of chatbots has been around for a while, and you might have heard of there's a long-running one called HughBot. So HughBot is let's just do a quick search for HughBot and see bring up some more information on that. So HughBot's been around for a while. It's written by GitHub, and it allows you to interact with the end user. So the end user can, or someone that's in the chat can give it a command. HughBot will then go off and do something and bring that back into the chat with the result, right? So it's PoshBot isn't a new idea, but it's an implementation that's specifically written in PowerShell. Now, the reason that that's interesting is because the things that we want to do, so we being Chocolatey as a company, the things that we want to do or have the bot automate on our behalf is typically written in PowerShell. So the fact that the entire chat op system is written in PowerShell is quite an interesting one. Okay, now the really interesting thing about PoshBot, and this was a limitation that I'd always found in HughBot. Now I could be wrong, and it is possible, but I never found a way yet. But we have the idea that we want to only have certain commands be available to certain people in the chat, right? So we don't want everyone running off and doing every single thing that the bot can do, but we want to restrict that to a certain number of people, right? Now, what PoshBot comes with out the box is this entire concept of permissions, role-based permissions. So it's baked in from the outset. So there's a concept of adding a role, adding a user to a role, and so on. And then the commands or the plugins that you create within PoshBot can be assigned to one of those roles or users. So if the person who's trying to activate the command doesn't have permissions, then they aren't able to execute the command. So that's really useful in terms of controlling who can do what. Okay. Question from Kim in the chat room then is this replacing Chocobot? Now, I thought someone might ask that question. So for those that don't know, within the various GitHub rooms, within the various Gitter rooms that is Chocolatey, then we have a HughBot instance that's running. So HughBot, we host the HughBot instance on Heroku, and Heroku is in this chat room, so that if I walk up to here and say, for example, Chocobot ping, then I should get a response back from Chocobot that says Pong. Okay, so it's one of the default scripts that the HughBot instance has, and what's happening there is that it's recognized the fact that I've said ping and it responds with Pong. Okay, so it's a very, very simple script, but it just proves that the communication mechanism is happening backwards and forwards. And what you'll see that Kim has bun into the chat room there is he said Chocobot Karma best. So that's another plugin or another script within our HughBot instance that's saying. Let me just do one thing here while I can. So it's another plugin, our script that's saying who are the best people, or rather, not specifically the best people, but if I were to go up to here and say add my ringworm ++, then that would say that Kim has leveled up. He's gained a credit, okay? He's gained a virtual currency. He hasn't actually got anything, but he's now gone up 1, so he's catching up now with Fervent Coder on the Karma Best, right? So it's though the scripts that we have running in the HuBot instance are reasonably naive because, well, I mean, we don't want anyone that's in this chat room doing stuff on our behalf. So what we've done is we've set up PoshBot internally to provide some of our automation things that we want to do. So the question of whether PoshBot is going to replace HuBot, that's up for debate. Now, the main reason that it's up for debate is because out of the box, HuBot, sorry, I'm going to get my bots mixed up. Out of the box, PoshBot only knows how to talk to Slack and Microsoft Teams. So if we go back over to HuBot here, HuBot has the concept of backends, and out of the box backends are Microsoft Teams and Slack. Those are the only two that it kind of knows how to talk to. Okay. Now, one thing that I have been working on, now I'm going to put my hand up and say that I've never written a plugin for PoshBot, and that's what I'm hoping to do this evening, right? What I have written for PoshBot is a backend for Gitter. So I have started the process of being able to use PoshBot on Gitter, right? So I think that's where we'll start the conversation tonight. So over here in this GitHub repository, I'm going to close that in case I reveal something I don't want to reveal. So this is a repository that I've created called PoshBot.gitter.backend. So this is an implementation of the interfaces that are required to have PoshBot talk to Gitter, right? So if we were to go back to here and have a look at the one of the repositories in the PoshBot IO in here, go down here and have a look, for example, then what Brandon has provided is an example backend. So this is how you can go about creating a new backend out with what is provided out of the box, okay? And if we go back up here and look at the PowerShell Gallery and search for PoshBot up here, and then further narrow that down by looking at the PoshBot tag. So Brandon's kind of asked that if you're pushing any packages to the PowerShell Gallery that are related to PoshBot, use the PoshBot tag. So that means they're kind of easier to find and for people to figure out what's going on. So what we can find in here is that someone has created a backend for Spark. So that's another front-end chat system that you can use. And there's also one for Google Chat. Okay, so my intention is to push my implementation, which once I've narrowed down a few things on it, that will allow me to talk in Gitter, right? So if I go over to here and go back up a level, back up to my repository, which is CD into GEP13, and then in here it should be a PoshBot Gitter backend. So in here I've got a start PowerShell script. So I'm not really going to go into the mechanics of how to start the PoshBot instance. That's all fully documented on the README or read the docs site that Brandon has. And I'll also give a shout out to Adam Bertram on for TechSnips. So TechSnips. If you don't know about TechSnips, you should definitely go and have a look at there. It's a series of short snips of videos that on a specific topic that are really, really good. And if we go up to here and search for PoshBot, what we'll find is that Brandon has done a series of TechSnips videos on how to get started with PoshBot. So I've watched these, and I would recommend that you all go and watch them as well. And this is kind of where we're going to start doing all these things. So off the back of that, I've created this start.ps1 file, which just simply runs PoshBot in the current session. Now, it's entirely possible to run PoshBot as a Windows service, so you can start it when a machine comes up and have it running as a service rather than in a specific PowerShell session like I'm doing here. But for what I'm going to do, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so if I run this, I said this, but it didn't seem to. There we go. So that PoshBot instance is now running, and it should be set up to this room that I have here. So if I go back over here, so the current implementation of the PoshBot Gitter backend is that it's limited to only one room. So with Hubot and with most chat op systems, you can live in multiple rooms or channels depending on what terminology you use. So in the current implementation of my Gitter backend, it's focused in on one room. Okay, so to prove that that's working, I can run something like the generic help command, which comes out of the box with PoshBot. If I run that, then I'll get a response from my bot instance. So it's come back with the current commands that it knows about. So in here, it's got all the commands, the built-in commands around setting up a role, setting up a user, setting up the permissions between the two, all that sort of stuff. And if we drill down and look at something like the slap command, so let's see if we can find some help on the slap command. So that is a built-in command, and if we with this example usage here, so if we say slap, I know he's in the chat room, so let's just slap at myringworm and see what we get out. Myringworm, there he is. Then PoshBot should reply with a slap. Now that may or may not work because I'm going into uncharted territory here. Oh no, that's a command, so that should have been. Let's try that again. That should have been slap at myringworm. Let's give him a proper slap. See what that comes back with. There we go. PoshBot then replies with slaps at myringworm around with a large trout, because obviously that's exactly what you want to happen, right? So, apologies for the slap in the face there, Kim, but just to prove that it works, and there we go. You've given me one back, so that's perfectly fine. There's a question in the chat room from Matthias. Can one run it in the cloud, i.e. Azure Functions or Azure Automation, or is a VM ready? So that's a question that I've had, Matthias, and I honestly don't know the answer. Where I have set it up and where I have it running, it is running on what's essentially a VM. Now, what I haven't asked the question of Brandon directly to answer that question. It would be nice to run it in the cloud, but for my understanding as of right now, it would need to run in a VM. So I don't think something like Azure Function would be directly supported just yet. But that's certainly something that we should ask Brandon and find out what the answer to that is. Okay, so we've now got a running instance of PoshBot. Okay, that's great. Now we're already further than I thought we were going to be tonight, so that's good. So I think that's Warren that's just replied there. If I've got your name wrong, Warren, I do apologise, but I think that's Cookie Monster in the chat room there. And that's part of the issue. So let's just go with Cookie Monster at the minute. What Cookie Monster there is saying is that for Slack at least, it needs a constantly real-time API. So that's how I've actually. There we go. It is Warren. So that's great. That's how I've set up the Gitter backend as well. So the Gitter backend creates an open long polling session to Gitter, and then it returns the results. Now, there are other ways of talking to some of these systems like webhooks. So in theory, you could use a webhook to have messages come back and forward. But from what I've seen of the Teams implementation and the Slack implementation, it's using a real-time API, which kind of needs that open WebSocket or the long polling connection in order for it to pull through. Okay. So Mr. Azure MVP, that is Matthias, might be able to point us in the right direction of how we can do that in Azure land. If so, run it in a container. That's certainly a possibility. I know at least it needs at least PowerShell 5. Whether it supports PowerShell Core, that's again that would be a question for Brandon to see where that goes. Anyway, that's off topic. Right? We're not concentrating on the finer details of running the instance, because I've got a running instance. I've got a running instance right here. I'm going to concentrate on this one, right? So, the next nice thing about PoshBot is that you can run commands from any module that you have on your system, right? And on top of that, you can create your own modules specifically for command implementations within the PoshBot instance. So this is kind of where we've internally within Chocolatey made use of it, because we have some automations around the community repository and various other things. So my co-worker Paul, or Pobby, on Twitter, has created a number of modules that have specific functionality for what we want to do. Okay, and then within our Slack channel, we can then say, I should just tell you, we've called our bot Daisy, and it's Daisy the cow. I don't quite know where Daisy the cow came from, but it's who we have. We have a Daisy the cow PoshBot instance, and we can call on Daisy to do certain actions, right? And she also sings a song. If you really ask her to, you can ask her to sing the Daisy the cow song. I'll leave it to you to Google about that and listen to it at your leisure. So you're saying you should be able to run EG. That is my understanding, Maurice, yes. Now, whether you have to do specific things, that's maybe a question. I know that Warren might be able to answer that one specifically. But it has access, because of the way it's implemented, it has access to run certain. Whether you have to, again, provide access to those based on the RBAC permissions, that's a different question. Obviously, you're not going to be able to do. You have to install the module into the PoshBot instance to make it available. So you wouldn't want to do everything, but you have access to them. Yes. Now, what I want to do is I want to create a new plugin, and I'm going to show an example plugin, or maybe 2 example plugins, and how we can get them into the PoshBot instance to then do things with it, right? You can run, so Warren's saying you can run pretty much every command. Building your own plugin is ideal. You can then constrain to certain roles, etc. But you can, in theory, install a non-Posh specific module. Absolutely. So what Warren said, right? Now, what I want to be able to do within here is, because everyone does it, it's like the first thing that we want to do is we want to obviously get access to XKCD comic strips within our chatbot, so that we can then ask our bot instance for what's the latest XKCD comic, right? So that's where we're going to start, just to show an example of that, because if we go back up to here, then there is a PoshBot XKCD plugin already for PoshBot, right? Now, if we click on that, and then click through to the project site, it gives us instructions on how to get it into our running instance, right? So, what we need to do is we first of all need to install the module that is the PoshBot XKCD plugin, and then we need to install that plugin into our running instance of PoshBot, right? So, I'm going to go here, and I'm just going to bring PoshBot down just now. And then we'll go ahead and do that. If my machine, there we go. So according to this help document, we need to install this XKCD plugin. So let's go ahead and do that, because I don't have it on my machine. This is me for it into the blind, and hopefully to get all this up and running. So we've now installed that. So if we start my PoshBot back up again, right? What we should then be able to do is we should be able to go into that instance, and we should be able to do this. But what I'm going to show first of all is that if someone's on the chat window, go ahead and try and install that plugin, because you shouldn't be able to do it. And this is where the RBAC kicks in. You, as a non-administrator user who hasn't been assigned a role or permissions, you shouldn't be able to do that command. So, Kim or Maurice, can you paste that into the Gitter window? And I want to see if this fails in the way I expect it to. And then I'm going to run it, and I'm going to install the plugin, and then hopefully it works. So Maurice has tried to do it, and PoshBot then returns saying, nah, you're not getting into play. Because I am set up as the main administrator of the account, or the PoshBot instance. Yeah, I don't... I see what you did there, Maurice, but no, I don't think that's going to work either. Right. So, if I do that instead, though, so if I type in this, I should be able to run that install command, and hopefully it'll work. Install plugin. Is that not coming back? Did that just not get a response? Let's have a look. Let's try that again. Install plugin, name PoshBot XKCD. Oh. Not sure what that was, what the intended response there was, but that's my Gitter backend implementation not showing what it's meant to show. So that's a limitation. If we were in the Slack implementation or the Teams implementation, the response probably would have been much better. But let's do that again. Let's do get plugin and see what happened here. I can't type. Get plugin. Now we have the plugin XKCD, right? So we're getting somewhere. So if we now go back to here and see what the usage is, then the usage is the XKCD command, which gives me a random one back, and then there's lots of other ones, newest 5, all that sort of stuff. So back over here, again, we should be able to do XKCD. Again, Maurice, you won't be able to. Ooh, this one's open to everyone. XKCD is open to everyone. There's no RBAC permissions on that command. How do you configure RBAC? We're not going to go into that, dev lead, Matthias. We're not going to do that. It's all documented on the website. It can be implemented. It means lots of backwards and forwards, creating a role, creating users, assigning permissions, all that sort of stuff. There is documentation on it, and I would encourage you to go and do that. But we're not going to. That's not the focus of what we're doing on the stream tonight. So we've now got a running implementation of XKCD. Now, the response that we're getting back isn't ideal. Now, the response that we're getting back is just plain text. Now, that would be better if that was the actual image. Now, if we go and have a look at the source code for XKCD, and this is something that I have to do once I get a minute, then if we have a look in the module here at how it's implemented, and we scroll down here, then what we're getting back is this. We're getting back just the URL to the image. Now you'll see that there's a specific implementation for the Teams backend here for the XKCD plugin, where rather than just returning the URL, it's then embedding it within Markdown syntax to make the image appear within the Teams backend. Now I'm going to have to do the same thing once the Gitter backend is published, so I'm going to add in another clause into this if statement so that I can get to the Gitter backend the right response to make the image appear. Okay? So that's for a different day. But we have a functioning we have a functioning XKCD implementation in our thing. So we've now got one more thing added to our PoshBot instance. So we're working our way along the line here. The other one I wanted to show you, because it's closer to what I'm actually hoping to implement to see how it all works, is another plugin that's available out of the box, which is the Karma plugin. So if we go back to the full list, so over here there should actually be a Karma plugin as well. So this is similar in functionality to the one that I showed you running in the HuBot instance, right? But it will be a PoshBot specific implementation of that. So again, if we go down here and we have a look at the commands, so what we need to do is we need to install the module, and then again we need to bring that into the PoshBot instance. So let's go ahead and bring PoshBot down again. Ooh, there was a red text there. Something didn't. Command install plugin. Oh, that was for when Maurice attempted to install the plugin. So that's to be expected. That's good. That's nothing to worry about. If we bring this back down again, and let's go ahead and install the Karma plugin this time round. And we'll then install that into the PoshBot instance once we bring it back up again. So that's it installed, and let's bring it back up. Back over to here to the documentation, we've then got the install plugin, PoshBot Karma. So we copy that, go back to Gitter, and run this command again in here. We should then get the ability to do get plugin. We've now got the Karma plugin running here. Now, if I do, this is where it gets a little bit tricky in this specific running instance, because if I do Kim and I do a ++ on Kim, I'll get an immediate response from the HuBot instance, which is the running instance that's in here in this channel, but there's a complication. So I think that the two Karma instances are they're not getting on. Let's put it that way. So let's do. So Kim's just run the help command, so we'll see that it's there. So it's the add Karma, and there's Karma, and there's remove Karma. So if we run Karma, we should get. Now that happened before. Now this is a bug, I think, in the Karma plugin itself, and I need to speak to Brandon about this one. It's failing there because there are no entries in the Karma plugin yet, right? But if we try it again and we do Manfred, let's try Manfred. Let's just try and do a ++ on Manfred. See if. There we go. So that second response is the one that came back from PoshBot, not HuBot. So now if we run the Karma command, now we should see that we get a response back that says Manfred's got 1 point. Whereas if I were to run something like ChocoBot Karma best, then that's the response coming from HuBot. Okay, so again, we have a running plugin and things are working. You're okay. Now, the way that the HuBot instance works, HuBot is taking that Karma and it's storing it into a Redis instance as a key value pair. The way that PoshBot is doing it is it's persisting it to local storage on the machine itself. So, I mean, that's a technical detail. We don't care about that. But again, we have a running instance of PoshBot that does some stuff, right? So, what we want to do, or what I want to do, is I want to walk through the process of creating my own plugin, and I want it to have it do some stuff, right? So, the simplest one that I could think about doing is this one over here, right? So, there is the concept of a soon script for HuBot. So if you go up to a GitHub room or a Slack room that has a PoshBot that has the soon, if I type the word soon, then I get a response back that says, here is an image of something happening soon. In this instance, obviously, this cat is going to attack this dog, and it's going to happen soon, right? So it's a completely naive little plugin, and if you, it's a random selection. So if we were to type get well soon, then it's just looking for the text soon within the string, and it's going to do stuff, right? So if we click on this one, then again, this cow is going to do whatever it's going to do, but it's going to do it soon, right? Why not something like chocosearch.net? So, Maurice, absolutely. That is something that could come later. I'm at the stage where I'm literally just trying to get something working, and I'm trying to get it. I'm time boxing myself into this stream to try and get it to a point where it's working. So the suggestion there of why not chocosearch.net 462, absolutely we could do that. I have no reservations in saying that could be done. We're not going to do that tonight, no. But that's certainly something that we could spend some time on a later stream if that's something that we wanted to look into. So, what we're going to do is, well, we need a GitHub repository, we need to have a place that we can put some source code, and we need to start writing this plugin, okay? So I'm going to unashamedly steal some code from Brandon, because his Karma plugin is essentially doing what I want to do. His Karma plugin is looking for text that has something along the lines of Maurice ++. So it's looking for the ++, and if it works, if it finds it, it does something based on that, right? And if it finds a --, so I'll do myself rather than take it away from anybody else. If it finds a --, then it will take that off, right? So he's got a regular expression running that is going to look for those things. So, oh, thank you, Manfred. I appreciate it. He has a regular expression running on that command. So or on that plugin rather. So I want the same thing, but specifically looking for the text soon within the chat messages that are coming through. So we should be able to unashamedly steal, or rather borrow, the code for the Karma plugin and set that to task for what we want to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and start that process. So I'm going to go up to here, and I'm going to go to github.com/gep13. /gep13. There we go. And I'm going to create a new repository, and then in there I'll clone that locally, and then we'll be able to start doing some stuff. So let's go up to here, and let's just check in terms of naming conventions and things. So it's called PoshBot XKCD. So we're going to create a new one up here called PoshBot, and we'll just call it soon, right? It's going to be public. It's going to be, I don't think there's a git ignore specifically for PowerShell. No, there's not. So let's just leave that at the minute. And I'm going to license this as pretty much everything else that I license, which is MIT. And we'll go ahead and create that repository. Okay. So let's go ahead and grab that. And let's just shut that down just now, because we're not going to need it just now. And that's another error, or is that the same one? Oh no, that's for the cannot bind. I need to speak to Brandon, or I need to raise an issue on the Karma plugin about that, because it doesn't seem to like it when there's no entries in the deposit, when there's no entry in the storage. It throws an error when you try and run the Karma command. So if we go up to here, and then we git clone that repository that we just created. I thought I put it in my clipboard, but I obviously didn't. Let's go ahead and clone that locally. And then let's cd into there. And then git checkout -b. These are my conventions. You don't need to do these things. This is just the way I do it. git push, that's going to fail because I need to push it up to here. And then let's just do that. And then let's go into here. And then let's make that develop branch the master branch. Yes. And let's create an issue for initial implementation of soon command for PoshBot. And let's go ahead and create that. Okay, so into this repository, I need to do some things. So what I've already done on this machine is I've cloned the Karma plugin locally. So if I look in PoshBot.io and look in, not that one, if I look in this Karma folder, these are all the files that Brandon has used to create that plugin. So again, I said I was going to unashamedly steal it, and I hope that he's okay with that. Let's just quickly check. It is. It's all MIT, so it's fine. We'll send a link back to say that we borrowed all the code from Brandon, so it's all good, right? So I'm going to take all of that, and I'm going to go into my newly cloned repository, and we'll start digging into the code and see what we need to do to change things up to make it work. So here's get13, there's PoshBot soon, and let's paste that in, and I'll say skip that file. Okay, so there's some things immediately, obviously, that we're going to need to change to make it consistent. So we're going to create that, and let's go ahead and open this in Visual Studio Code, and we'll start seeing how this works. Okay, so as a sanity check, let's just check for Karma and see what we need to do. So I'm going to take the changelog out just now because I don't want that. We haven't got we haven't set up AppVeyor yet for the build, but we'll come back to that. There's some tests in here for add Karma. Again, we'll come back to that because that's not what we're concentrating on tonight. So we'll delete the tests. What else did we have in terms of? There's some names of files, so we'll change that to be called. I thought I could enter there. Oh, that's on the Mac. I can do that. Let's rename that, and let's do this as soon. And then let's rename this one as well to be soon. Okay. Where else have we got? There's a bunch of stuff in the README. So let's just move some of this stuff because we're not going to have all those commands. We're not actually going to have a command. I'll talk about that in a minute. So this is going to be called soon, and it's going to be installed. Eventually, it'll be installed from the repository, from the gallery, the PowerShell Gallery. I'll come back to that. And simple PoshBot plugin to managing Karma. A simple PoshBot plugin to show random images anytime someone writes the word soon. Okay, I think that's a great description so far. That's a build image for AppVeyor. Let's take that out because we're not going to have that just now. And let's see if there's anything else. Okay, so there's no more Karma. Okay, so in here, interesting. I haven't got match case on, have I? Interesting. Okay. So this is just the manifest file, so I'll just borrow again what Brandon's got in here, and we'll use this as a basis for what we're going to do going forward. And today we're in 2019. This will be American implementation, so it's the 21st, so we're on the 4th of the 3rd. Is that what it did? Good point, Maurice. So Maurice in the chat room saying that it didn't update the search result after I changed the file name. So that's absolutely correct. Version number of this module, this is going to be the first version, so we're just going to call it that. The root module is going to be called soon. Uniquely identify, I need a new GUID. So let's go up here and go new GUID. Here's the online generator. I'm sure there's a quicker way of doing this, but this is the way I tend to do it. I'm going to grab that from there. And let's put that in there. Author, I'm going to say that I'm going to be the author. And community, copyright, sure. Guy Ewan Park, all rights reserved. A description is going to be a soon plugin for PoshBot. PowerShell version, as I said, I mentioned it, PowerShell 5 as a requirement. Oh, I'm sure there probably is, Maurice. I maybe could have gone there first. GUID, no, there's nothing built in. So yeah, it probably would be an extension. Blah, blah, blah. So one of the required modules for our plugin module is going to be the PoshBot. So it's just going to making that connection. Yeah, that's true too. Obviously, Brett in the chat room is saying that we could also have done. Absolutely. Hold up. So as I said, all those things I said about Brandon weren't true. He's a great guy. I'm joking, Brandon. So Brandon's just joined us in the chat room. So thank you very much for coming. What I'm currently doing, Brandon, I'm gonna be honest. I'm currently stealing all of your MIT code, and I am creating a brand new plugin for PoshBot based on the Karma plugin that you have, and I'm going to try and get that up and running in my PoshBot instance that I've got running. So new GUID, even easier. Let's finish off that topic of conversation. So new GUID, there we go. I could have done that too. Yes, I'm set in my ways. I'm using the online GUID generator, but yeah. So obviously the creator of PoshBot, Brandon Olin, is in the chat room. So full credit to I've said this to him in a Zoom chat that I had with him recently. PoshBot's amazing. So I fully advise people to at least give it a try if they're interested in anything related to this. If you're doing any sort of automation on Windows, you're using PowerShell anyway. So doing it in PoshBot just makes sense because it's all in the same language at that point. So in terms of what I'm doing for this soon plugin, I don't necessarily want to export any functions because I'm not. That's a lie. I'm going to have at least one function in here that we're going to say is called get soon, is what I think I'm going to call it. So I'm going to close that out. That's a good point, Warren. Yes, Brandon's in the chat room. Let's if anyone remembers any of the questions that we said we're going to speak to Brandon about, let's fire them at him in the chat room. The first one was whether this PoshBot can run serverless in the cloud, on Azure, on AWS, on somewhere. We thought that it might be possible in a container with maybe PowerShell core, but Azure Functions was suggested as a hosting mechanism as well. So that would be good to have an answer on. I appreciate Warren coming back with that question. So that's a function I'm going to have. I'm going to have a function called getSoon, and I'm going to define that in my PSM1 file. Let's see what else we need to do here. Give it some tags. So I mentioned that there's kind of a suggestion or a requirement, not quite a requirement, but any module that you're pushing to the PowerShell Gallery, include the PoshBot tag, so it's easy to identify modules, packages that are related to PoshBot. So I'll just copy that into there as well. The license file, let's just grab the URL to that for the repo that we just created, which is going to be here and in here, and then let's just get the raw URL, which is going to be here. Go ahead and copy that into here, paste that in, and then the project URL is just going to be this one. Copy that, and then we'll come back to the chat to see what's going on. So the question from the response from Brandon is not really designed to be run serverless, but containers, yes, absolutely. If you could run it in Azure Container Instance, ACI, is that? I'm assuming that's the acronym. If you don't want to care about the infrastructure, or AWS Fargate, you would need some type or persistent store though. Yes, for things like the Karma plugin, where it is storing things into the local store, you would need to have that equivalent through a volume. Yeah, Azure Container Instances. Yeah, ACI can use Azure storage files for persistence. So that's Mr. Azure MVP coming back there with a response. That's Matthias. So Matthias is saying that Azure Container Instances can use Azure storage files for persistence. Okay, so that seems like it should work. That's ideal. Release notes for this, I don't have any yet, but let's imagine that I'm going to have that. So let's just make that URL up while we're here. So let's go ahead and copy that. And paste this into here. End of hash table. Okay, so that's us got our module manifest in play. PoshBot will store the list of registered plugins, permissions, roles, etc. in PSD1 files. Those need to be persisted also. Okay, yes, absolutely. So once PoshBot is running, as you are using the built-in commands for creating a role, assigning a user to a role, all that sort of stuff you're saying is persisted into PSD1 files, so that when the service is shut down and brought back up, it's going to rehydrate that information from those PSD1 files, and so those need to be persisted for the lifetime of the running instance. Gotcha. So the configuration directory defined in your bot configuration, all that is saved in there. Okay, absolutely. Okay. So that's maybe something else we could try at a later date. We could attempt to have what I'm running locally. We could try and have that running. Ooh, Matthias, how about that? That could be a topic for a stream then. We could take your Azure knowledge and get PoshBot running on an Azure container instance running in Azure and responding to our commands. That's a possibility for a topic that we spoke about. Okay, so further, so all I've done there is I've completely hijacked what Brandon created and looked in the manifest file and made that specific to this implementation of this plugin. And then the other thing that's needed, so any PoshBot plugin needs two things as a minimum. Those two things are the manifest file, the PSD1 file, and the PSM1 file, where all the code lives. Okay. A DevOps. I think that sounds like a great idea, Maurice. So okay, we could make this happen then. So. Maybe in a future stream we'll have Matthias sitting up there in the top right hand corner, telling me how to do an Azure container instance, and we can try and get PoshBot instance running up there. And you'll need a volume for the module directory for the user. Plugin modules get saved to current user scope. That will need to be persisted as well. Sounds doable. So the main question then Brandon, is that. PowerShell 6, PowerShell Core, PoshBot is happy living in that world, as well as I'm running it on obviously full fat PowerShell here on this machine. Work on getting containers is in progress. Docker encrypt PS1. Ooh. Oh, I see what you're saying. So an actual, so already having PoshBot installed, ready to be used, is what you're referring to there. Interesting. That's definitely something we should look at as well. Okay, so as I was saying, for a plugin, the minimum that's needed is the PSD1 file and the PSM1 file. So I've updated the PSD1 file, the manifest file, to have everything that is the soon specific. And what I then need to do is I then need to create a function that is going to act as what I want to do. So let's have a look at what the Karma plugin is currently doing, and then we'll be able to decide what we need to have happen for the soon plugin. Works fine in core. Caveat is that your plugins need to support core as well. Okay, yeah, no, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so we saw that there are 3 main functions in the Karma plugin. One is for adding karma, or there's 4 rather. So there's add karma, there's remove karma, and then there's the karma command as well. So the karma command is, it's actually this one up here, wasn't it? Set. No, it is what I wanted to show was the main part. Where's the part that I wanted to show? It's this part here. I think, well, if Brandon wanted to be on that stream, I wouldn't say no to that either. I'm now thinking about technical implementations of whether I would be able to have 2 people on a stream at once. That's maybe above my OBS, Skype, NDI knowledge at the minute, but that's certainly something that we could look into. Sure. You should have to epic on the stream then. I'm. If Brandon wants to come on the stream, he is more than welcome, and we can set that up. And there we go, even better. Let me get back to you on that one, and we can try and set that up. Okay, so this is the thing that I'm interested in. So right now, for my soon plugin, I don't necessarily want to have a command. I don't want to have to type !karma to get a response back from PoshBot. I want PoshBot to respond whenever the word soon is included within a chat message that's coming backwards and forwards. So the way that that's implemented is through the use of a trigger. So there are multiple triggers within PoshBot. The one I'm interested in is the regex trigger. If we go back to the documentation for PoshBot, which was up here, then have a look here for triggers, then we'll see that there are multiple types. So the trigger types here are a command, which is the default one, an event trigger. So that is when things happen. And the one that I'm interested in is this regex trigger. So it's going to be able to look at the chat messages that are coming in, apply a regex to each one of those, and then if a match is found, it will trigger the function that I'm including within my module. The examples that we've got here show 2 implementations of that. So if we make this a bit bigger. So in this example, the regex is simple. It's a simple regex that it's just looking for the word cookies. Okay? This one might, the cookie monster that we've got in the chat, might like this one. So this is a simple regex that's just looking for the word cookies within the chat message. And if it finds that, it's just writing back an output that is, did someone mention cookies? I love cookies, nom nom nom. So that's a simple regex. The second example is a more complicated regex. So if we look at this one, everyone loves regex, right? What we're looking at here is that there are matching groups within this regex. So it's looking here for whether it's a CPU or a disk, and it's also looking for whatever comes afterwards. Now, those are then, the matching groups are then passed in as arguments to the function. So in here, we'll see that there is an arguments parameter, and then those matched groups within the regex are passed through as arguments into the function. I just use Slack notifications for so again, in this in the soon implementation, I'm not going to have any matching groups in my regex, so I don't need to worry about arguments being passed in. But it's totally that's definitely something that's available within this trigger. So if we go back to here, I'm going to use this one as a basis for what I'm trying to achieve. So that's this. I'm going to have the add karma one because it's a simple plugin. So I said I was going to call it get soon. So as a function, let's just call this get soon, and it's not a command. So it's not expecting the exclamation mark or whatever the identifier it is that you have for the command within PoshBot. It's a regex trigger instead, and I'm just going to have a simple regex that is looking for soon. So those are the arguments that we would typically pass in. Again, we're not going to need those. And then I need to do something, right? So the something that I want to do is, we'll come back to that because we might want that. The something that I want to do based on the kind of original HuBot implementation is I want to find a random, take a random or take a collection of images and find a random one of those and then output it to the stream, to output it back to the chat message. So I'm going to borrow all of these because that saves me having to go and find any. And I'm going to create an array here. So this is an image array, and we'll just have that equal to that there. And what I want to be able to do is I want to find a random one of those, and then I want to output it back to my chat session, right? So this is where my let's call this randomly selected image. Randomly selected image is going to be what do we want to do here? We want to take the image array and we want to index into that with a get random for maximum image array dot count, and that in theory should hold on, I know what I want to. There we go. Dev lead sort new GUID select object first, blah blah blah, sort object new GUID. Is that any better or worse than what I've done, Matthias? Or there's a couple of suggestions there. Maurice is saying get random input object. Okay. GUID are more fun. Guaranteed random. So what's that doing? Sort object new GUID. You know what? The actual implementation, it doesn't matter. Let's not worry about it. I think this will give me what I want. Let's just test this out, shall we? Copy. Sure. And then image array. Copy. paste. Boom, boom, boom. Look at that. That's like random magic happening right there. I'm going to go with that, right? If there's better implementations of this random, once I've submitted my code to GitHub, I'm happy to accept pull requests. But that's given me a random image from that selection. Maximum possibly throw an argument out of exception. Where would an argument out? Where Kim wouldn't get random maximum of that, possibly throw an argument out of range exception. Image dot. Oh, but it need -1 is what you're saying. Possibly. Could possibly get. Okay, hold on. Get maximum. Let's try this. Get random input object image array. Or hold on, I wrote that wrong. Get random input object image array. Okay, let's go with that then, shall we? Okay. Enough random talk. I'm going to go with that. And paste. Okay, so we've now got a random image coming back from there. So we want to do one of two things. So we want to write it out. Now, as we saw earlier, when we looked at the XKCD plugin, there was special handling depending on whether it was going to Slack or whether it was going to Teams. And the difference was that one was writing it in Markdown format and the other was writing it in just straight out. So I'm going to assume that I want something similar. So again, let's borrow some code that we saw before. So in here, we got the comic. So if comic, so let's copy this. Sorry, just catching up on the chat here. You'd prefer this over. Oh, for goodness, went wrong. I'm going to ignore that just now. It says it selects a maximum count, then the index would be one more than. Okay, yes, I think you're right, Kim. Just a command, HTTPS, image URLs. Are all the image URLs HTTP? Are they? Okay, let's fix that, shall we? Let's test one of these and make sure that HTTPS is available. HTTPS. It is. Okay, so let's fix that as a minimum. Let's put this into here. And if I knew how to do a block selection in VS Code, I would do it, but I'm going to do it old school just now. I'm just going to put them all in here. Okay. So if we go back to the XKCD implementation, there was a specific check to see what the backend was. Find place works too, yes. Press Alt. See, Alt is hard because my keyboard is going through my Mac, through my Synergy, into my Windows machine. So Alt on my keyboard isn't in my Alt that I would normally use. So I'm gonna no. So I've got my randomly selected image, and interesting. So is Brandon still in the chat room? So Brandon, on the Karma plugin, there you were using new PoshBot text response, but in the XKCD plugin, you are just writing to the output stream. So is there a reason that you should do one over the other? Or is it can you maybe put some words in the chat room around that? Just so that we know where we're at there. I'm going to go with this just now, and then we can come back to it. So in here, I'm just going to take what I had here. So it's rather than randomly selected image, it will be here. He went to a stand. Oh, did he? Did I miss that? All right. Okay. Well, maybe come back to that then. Okay. So someone remember that when Brandon comes back, we'll ask him a question, and we'll say if that, then image is going to be this here, and then if alt text. So we're not going to have that, and on this one we're going to have that. Okay, and did I get a little bit overzealous and I deleted too much from the Karma plugin? I think I maybe did. No. Oh, maybe because it's doing it a different way. So it's not so it's using the manifest file to export the function rather than what the XKCD one, which is doing it down here. So let's go with that. So in theory, I have everything that I need now. I'm just altering my heating because it's getting a little bit warm in my room here. I'm going to turn my heater off. So in theory, I have everything that I want to make this work, right? So I have a function that's called getSoon, and in that implementation, I am taking an image from an image array, and I'm writing that to the output stream, which is essentially the chat window that I'm currently in. So in theory, I have everything that I need to run this code. Now what I need to do is I need to get this module into PoshBot, right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run this build script. So this build script is, again, something I unashamedly stole from... oh, he's back. Okay, so the first question that I had, Brandon, was in the XKCD implementation, you're writing directly to what I'm assuming is the output stream. But in... Thank you, Kim. But in the Karma implementation, which is not that one. Let's bring it up. Let's close off some of these windows. Here's the Karma one. In the Karma one, you are using a commandlet to, where was it? To use the new PoshBot text response. So the question was when to use one over the other, and should I use one over the other? Text response is, so Matthias has put a link into the chat window here, so I'm going to copy that and put this over here. PoshBot soon, that's the one we're working on. Let's close that dude and paste this in here. If you just need plain text, just write to the output stream. Okay. So in this scenario, I want... Now you see this is... So in my implementation of the Gitter backend, I did add some handling. So the... and Brandon can correct me if I'm wrong here. So there are different responses that are possible to for PoshBot. So any PoshBot plugin can respond with one of, I think, 4 different message types, and the expectation is that within a backend implementation, it will look at that response type and then decide how best to handle putting that response into Slack or into Teams or into Gitter or into Google Chat. So one is a text response, one is a card response, and there's other bits and pieces in there that will handle what needs to happen, right? Now, what Brandon's saying there is that if we just want text to be output, then we would just write to the output stream. But if we wanted it to be handled as text, then we would use a text response. And what we're also saying here is it can put out to DM. Is that a question, Matthias? New PoshBot text response has an extra feature where you can use the DM switch to redirect the output to a DM channel. I see what you're saying. Okay. Or as code switch to format the text. If you don't use the as code or DM switches, the new text response, it doesn't really do anything different from writing to the output stream. I see. Okay. I missed a part of the stream. Is this going to be a Teams backend? I presume so. So no, the the question from Brett in the chat room there is this going to be specific to any backend? No, I mean this plugin, this very simple plugin, should work in any backend. The reason that I brought in that if statement was it based on what I saw in the XKCD plugin was that the handling of an image would be different based on whether it was a Teams backend or a Slack backend. So in the Teams backend, it must need it formatted as an actual markdown link, so it will render it correctly. And I also need the same thing I've implemented a Gitter backend for PoshBot, and I need the same thing. So I'm going to need to add in here an additional implementation for Gitter backend. Whereas Slack, Brandon's saying that Slack will automatically unfurl the image lines. Teams doesn't do that, hence the markdown. Absolutely. So yes, in my implementation, I'm going to need to do the same thing, because as we saw, if we go back to Gitter up here, when we did the XKCD, which was further up here, before we did Karma, here, when we did the XKCD plugin, it was just writing out a text string. So it didn't actually render that as an image, which is what we want it to do. So I'm going to need to have that same implementation to do that stuff. But for now, actually, let's just make this a little bit simpler. And let's just write it to the output stream as is and see what it comes back with. So let's just do this and this one. So if we have a selected image, then we'll just write it to the output stream. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need to get this module into my running instance of PoshBot. So Brandon has helpfully created a build script that should do all the necessary work of building and I'm assuming testing this. We don't have any tests, but it would do some tests. You could also use the PoshBot card response image URL. Okay, let's take that comment there and copy that. Oh, come on. Can I not copy that? Copy. And let's put this in here as a comment to say that we might come back and look at that. Dev Black Ops. Let's do that. Will that work with this Gitter plugin? So yeah, maybe. Provided the backend has support. Okay, so let's answer that question. So the concept of a card doesn't really translate into Gitter because it's not there. There are no nice. There's not. That's not true. I was going to say there are not. It doesn't have Gitter. Doesn't have all the niceties of Slack and Teams in terms of the formatting that can be applied to a message. It's really just markdown or code. Oh, that didn't work. I might have to put a return in there to have that, or is it because I didn't have? There we go. It's either code or it's markdown, so you can switch to markdown and do that. So it doesn't have all the implementations, but if I look at what I've done in my backend, so let's go back to here and /PoshBot. Do I have it open? No, I don't. Let's just find it. Repositories. Let's have a look for PoshBot. Get our backend. So in here, if I look for card, then I am handling the different response types, but really I'm kind of cheating. So really I'm saying if it's a card, just output it as text. If it's a text, just output it as text. And if it's a file upload, doesn't compute at the minute. So although there is an implementation in the GitHub backend, it's a very naive implementation for those response types. So I'll have to come back to that to fill it in. Then maybe the backend could translate a card into something that looks like a card, but in markdown syntax. Possibly. Ooh, I see what you're saying. If it supports markdown. Ooh, I see what you're saying. Yes, that may work. But for now, that would be a different day. My main question is, if I go ahead and build this, I want to test this installation of this module. So since we've got Brandon on the call, this should hopefully make this a little bit easier. So I'm running the build script just to test that works. So I'm assuming that this build script is going to download Saki. Saki is going to be used as the build automation tool for this project, and it's going to build stuff, right? So again, I haven't really looked at that build script. I'm just borrowing from what Brandon's done, and we're not too far removed from the plugin that we copied it from. So hopefully that should all work. So, or not. What was that? Microsoft signed module named Pester with version was previously installed, conflicts with the new module Pester from publisher, blah blah blah. 4.7.0. Installing the new module may result in system instability. If you still want to, let's not worry about that just now. So it succeeded. It's done all the stuff. Yada yada yada. Okay. So my question, Brandon, while we have you, is I want to get that module into my PoshBot instance. So I know that PoshBot will look in certain places for modules by default, or should I just install the module? So if I cd into where we were before, which was GitHub, get13, PoshBot. So this is where I'm going to run I have a start script in here, Brandon, which is where I'm going to run the PoshBot instance that I have. Should I just install the module from that location, or how do I get it into PoshBot? Let's wait and see if that comes back as a question. And then if we can get an answer, we shall see what happens. Because you can manually put the module into the plugins directory defined in the bot configuration. Okay, so in my Gitter backend, which is here, I'm hesitant to open this one too much. So that's where the config's coming from. So if I look in here, what we're saying is, if I go up to here, paste this in, and you're saying that you can manually put the module into the plugins directory defined in the bot configuration. So is that literally a folder called plugins directory? PoshBot prepends that directory to blah blah blah. You should find the module there first. Install module will look for the module locally first register if it found, and then install from the PS repository to find in the bot configuration if it can't find the module locally. So we haven't pushed it to the gallery, so it will be running locally. So I'm going to go ahead and create a plugins directory here. I'm going to, just plugins. Okay, let's change that then. Plugins. And then into there, I'm just going to pick this thing up. And I'm going to put this into here. So that's where it's going to find it from, hopefully. So if I go back to here and start this puppy up, then if we go back to here and borrow the command that we've done elsewhere, which is that one, copy this, and into here, I'm going to paste this, and hopefully I should be able to install the plugin. No, hold on. So let's just explain what's going on here. So as I mentioned previously, we have a HughBot instance running in this Gitter room as well. So the first response that's come back here is from the HughBot instance of the bot, and it's picked up on the fact that we had soon at the end of the command, so it's returned with the image that it found. The second response is what's come back from our PoshBot instance. So it's saying plugin PoshBot not found in the configured plugin directory. So I got the plugin directory wrong. So it's ctemp PoshBot plugins, not in Gitter. So I went one level down. So if I cut this and put this into here rather than the Gitter backend folder, and let's try that command again. So it was install plugin name PoshBot dot soon. So again, we're going to get a response from our HughBot bot instance, and this response, well, I haven't figured out what that is a response that my Gitter backend is coming back with. Slow down there, Kim. Hold on. Okay, so that's my Gitter backend kicking in there. So my Gitter backend is not doing what it's meant to do. Now, let's have a think about this. So it's done. So it's working. Okay, so let's slow down a little bit. So, so what we're seeing here is we create a plugin as a module. We've added that into the plugins folder of the PoshBot instance. We've then installed that plugin into the running instance of PoshBot, and immediately what's happened is that we are able to use the soon command. So if we do help here, we'll see that it has the function that I created called get soon has been exported correctly and is available as a command. And if we do a further help on get soon, too many soons now, we'll see that it has been registered. Manfred, stop it. We'll see that it has found that get soon command. It has created it as a it's given us all the information about how we can run it, what we can do with it. So the usage is just to reuse the soon alias, and from there that will then go into our function, or rather it is now looking at all of the messages that are coming through. It is applying that regex that we applied, which was to look for the soon keyword, and then it's executed the function, and that function was to take a randomly selected image from that array and output it back into the chat window. And all of those things seem to be working. Now, interesting why the slap command didn't work there. So this is something that I've been worried about with the Gitter implementation that I currently have. I think the Gitter implementation might be missing some messages. because there was stuff happening there when Maurice did the "this will become an issue soon," and then straight after that, Kim did another one, which was for slapping or interesting. I think my Gitter backend is struggling with the both messages at the same time. Because Kim, can you do the slap command again before? If just leave it to Kim to try it. If you do that slap command again, Kim, I think it should work. But if both you and Maurice do things at the same time, I think my Gitter implementation is struggling a little bit. This is the first time that I've kind of used it with more than just me doing things. So there's also some more comments here. So there's the slap command, and there's the soon. Or is it the HuBot and the PoshBot instance getting in the way? Can you just try a slap? Ah, you see. I wonder what's going on there. Okay, that's for a different. That's for a different discussion, or is it the fact, or maybe that's a question for. That is a Brandon's maybe I already asked it. That is a holdover from an earlier version of PoshBot where I use a different method. Oh no, maybe that's not the. Brandon, if you have both a command and a regex in a message, are they both going to be triggered? Or will it only do one or the other? Let's see what Brandon comes back with that. But anyway, regardless of all of that, we've now got a working implementation. Now, that implementation is currently broken because it's outputting the markdown as markdown, so it's not actually rendering it as markdown. So we need to fix that. It's the first one it matches. Okay, so that would be a good feature request. Okay, someone in the chat room, head on over to the PoshBot IO organization and find the PoshBot repository, and let's create an issue so that it can identify both a command and a regex and apply the trigger twice. I'm going to leave that to someone in the chat to do that. So what we want to do is I want to change my Gitter implementation slightly so that this works. So let's go and have a quick try of that. Let's kill this a second, and because what I found was, and the reason that I output everything as markdown was because the way that Gitter was outputting the text, it wasn't readable. So if we go back to Gitter here, then the way that this table was formatted, or what is essentially a table, it was unlegible in Gitter by default if I just output it as text. So what I did within my implementation was, if we go back to, let's have a search here for card again. What I did within my implementation was really naive, but what I essentially said was, for any response, whether it's a card, whether it's text, whether it's anything, wrap everything in code formatters and output it straight away. Now, what I should really be doing is testing the response, or especially for the text response. I should be checking to see if it has the as code parameter on the text response, and only then wrapping it in code tags. But my initial implementation was just to write out everything as code in Gitter, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm basically saying here I'm just wrapping everything in those code tags. Now, to fix that, to see if the actual markdown output is working, I could change this slightly. So, because it's not going to be one of it's literally just going to be this one. So if I take this out a second and just say that T well, T is just T at this point, so let's just try that. And if we go back over here, let's go ahead and build this one. Let's just test to see if that works now. And we'll see the output looking slightly differently, but we'll also hopefully see an image in the chat message. And I'll need to work on my Gitter implementation to make that work properly. So now with that change in play, if we go back up to here and say soon, that's the response from HughBot. Then we get the response from our PoshBot instance, which is now rendering it correctly as an image, and we have soon. Hey! And let's do it again. Let's do another one. And then see what we get back this time. Ha! Huzzah! Huzzah! I think that's a working implementation of the Soon plugin for PoshBot. I think that's it. There's not really much more to say here. It works. Now, come on, Manfred, behave. Well, that will only work. No, because the regex only matched on one of them. It wasn't looking for more than one match. So, I've got karma coming through now as well. Look at that. But that should have. That also didn't. See, why did Maurice's one not cause karma to come from PoshBot? There's definitely something. I don't think the Git implementation is fully functional. I think this has shown that there's at least something in there that's not right. But that will be a discussion for a different day. Same as HughBot at first, it doesn't. I think that's a different discussion, Maurice. But okay, this just it didn't respond to Kim's XKCD request there either. So let's see what happens if I do an XKCD. We should get something back from. Oh, okay. So that won't work, or rather, it won't work in rendering an image correctly, because as I pointed out, the PoshBot XKCD instance is only got a special handling for the Teams backend. So I would need to send a PR into Brandon to also include the Gitter backend in that if statement, in that clause there, to make it work. But it is responding with something. Can we get a second bot in here and have them talk to each other? No, Manfred, we're not doing that. Okay, so where we are is we have a working implementation of the Soon plugin, and what I'm hoping that I've shown is how to, or rather how easy it was to set that up, to have that function become available within as a plugin within the PoshBot instance was remarkably simple. I mean, it was the creation of a manifest file, creation of a PSM1 file, and then ultimately that would come from PowerShell Gallery, but we just dropped it into a plugins folder within the PoshBot instance, and we were off to the races. Now, we can make this plugin more complicated in the sense that we can specify the RBAC roles that it's associated with, so it's limited to only certain people. Something like the Soon plugin wouldn't necessarily want or need all of that. It would be open to everyone, but if you needed to limit it to a certain group of people, then you can definitely do that within the RBAC functionality of PoshBot. yeah, it was remarkably simple to bring this plugin through into our PoshBot instance. Now, there's obviously some issues, I think, with the Gitter implementation, but for now, it's functional. I'm happy with that. Oh, so it's not just me. Oh, what's this one? So there's a message here from Brandon in the chat room regarding missing messages. Fix missing messages in Slack backend from string to string array to handle. I thought I was doing that, but maybe I'll need to look at that. Okay, I will take a look at that. So let me take this, and actually I'll keep that around. The backend needs to support sending an array of messages. I see, I thought I was doing that. Let me just quickly check that. So that was in the receive job. Is that where it was? That was in the Slack backend PS1. I thought I was doing that. JSON results, and then I was for each thing through them. So, something to look into, basically. But that's not, like I say, that's not what the topic of this stream was all about. The topic of this stream was to try and highlight. The topic of this stream was to highlight how simple it was to create a plugin. So where we've, as I mentioned, where we've done this internally within Chocolatey is we've created our own module and added that as a plugin into our PoshBot instance, which is called Daisy the Cow, to do stuff that we're interested in. So it was as simple as what I've shown here. You can have your own implementation for whatever you want. This was a rudimentary example of the word soon appearing in a chat message, but that could be a specific command that's then tied to a specific set of roles and to users, so that you can limit to who does those things, and you could have that run off and start services up, bring services down, run any PowerShell that you need it to perform the functions you want it to do, but you can do it all in one central place, and then you have the results of those things coming back into Slack or into Teams, so that everyone gets the benefit of those things and everyone can do those things rather than having to run off and follow a document or log on to somewhere to do something. You can centralize all of that into this ChatOps flow, this workflow that is ChatOps, using PoshBot as the driver for all of that. So, I hope this has been useful. This was fun for me to play with this. So, what's left for me to do with this plugin would be to wrap it up in something, in a package that I can send to the PowerShell Gallery. I should probably tidy up the code that we did have in here, and maybe look into whether we submit that as a card response with an image URL. To see how that would flow through, because that I could handle in my Gitter implementation. So I would still be able to handle outputting all of the text messages as code, so that it's easier to read, but I would be able to handle that scenario where it's a card response, but it's with a specific image URL. So that's definitely something to look into. And I think that's all I want to do tonight. So Maurice is so we should probably do that actually. So let's commit what we have here and make sure that everything that we've got in here is what we need. So I'm not committing anything that I don't want to. So I've got a README that has it's a little bit preemptive in the fact we don't have it up there in the gallery, but that's just a build. That's a Saki script. That's a requirement. That's my PST1 file, and that's that. So this was for the first issue, which is initial implementation. So let's commit that. Yes, add all of those, and let's go and git push. So all of that code should hopefully make its way up into here. And what I need to do, there it is, what I'll need to do is add an AppVeyor build so that I can build that on each check-in. I should look into adding some tests. I should add in some PESR tests so that that we can verify that the functionality works as we expect it to. And what I need to do is I need to submit that to the gallery. Now, that's something... who have I got? So there's a few that will know the answer to this. I've never actually submitted anything to the PowerShell Gallery. I'll admit, I've never done it. I've submitted it to NuGet. I've submitted it to Chocolatey. What do I need to do to push this module to the PowerShell Gallery? Do I need to wrap it up in a package, or is it literally publish the module itself? Maybe Warren or Brett or Brandon, maybe Matthias as well. If we could get an answer on that, that would be good. That would save me some Googling. Let's see what comes back with that. And after that, I think we'll draw it to a close. It's almost my bedtime. It's 10 to 10 here in the evening, so it's almost my bedtime. Publish the module itself. Just need an API key. Sign up for. So I think I have an account. So let's verify that. So here's the PowerShell Gallery. I think I have an account. Sign in. I'm not going to give you my API key. Sign in. Sure, let's do that. Which account would I have used? It would have been this one, I think. Oh, but I might need my... I'll need an authenticate. Okay, I'll come back to that. So this is what I do in my publish script. Okay, so let's have a look at... Let's see what Kim's got here. There's also a publish task in the Saki file. Oh, is there? So publish PowerShell Gallery is publish module, okay. But we're saying that in the Saki script, so over here in Saki, we have publish. There we go, publish module. Path is the current one with an API key, which is going to be an environment variable. So it's expecting an environment variable to be there, and then it's publishing to the ideal. Okay, so in theory, I should be able to do that. Just need to populate your API key. Okay, so assuming that I can get logged into here with my username and password, I should be able to grab my API key, and by adding that as an environment variable, I should be able to publish to the PowerShell Gallery. Okay, so I'll not do that just now because I'm not quite ready yet. I've the workflow that I follow is Git flow, so I would actually need to take what's on the develop branch and move that to the master branch to publish from there. So I'll not bore you guys, girls, with that. But that's something I'll definitely do later, and I will publish the 0.10 release of the PoshBot.soon plugin, and maybe do some more as well, because this, like I said, this was quite fun. So, okay, that's answered that question. The final bit of housekeeping is the next stream that I'm planning on doing is documented on my live streams repository up here in GitHub. So if you're interested in following along with where we're going next, the next one will be on Friday, which is my lunchtime streaming session. So it's just an hour over my lunch on Friday, and we'll be jumping back to looking at the continuation of that Visual Studio Code extension that I've been working on. I'll do some more work in that there. If anybody... Yes, I'll finish this first. I'll come back to that question. If anybody's following along on my last Friday stream, or rather my first Friday stream, which was last Friday, we spent basically the whole hour trying to figure out why AppVeyor build wasn't working. It was great fun. Turns out that it was completely a transient error. AppVeyor, either the combination of AppVeyor and GitHub, decided to not work over my lunch hour. So we spent about 30 minutes trying to debug what was going on, only for it to work immediately after the stream stopped. So that's the way those things go. So that there'll be more of that on my Friday session this Friday at lunchtime. And based on what the conversation was in here, we may well have a stream coming up where we speak about how we can take PoshBot and stick it into an Azure container instance so we can run it in the cloud rather than running it locally on my machine. The other stream that I'm working on is another joint stream where I'm going to have some help setting up the stream to do some other stuff. So I've got a very basic stream set up where literally all I've got is kind of my usernames down the bottom and a chat window on the over there. But there are things that you can do in terms of having Streamlabs set up so that if I get a new follower, it'll pop up a message and that sort of stuff. I've never looked into any of that stuff yet. So I'm hoping to get a guest on who's got all that set up. And if I can get that buttoned up, that will be included here on an upcoming stream. And then also on this stream is you get access to all of the historical streams that I've done as well. So definitely have a look in here. And if there are any topics that you want to see covered, I'm using the issues list on this repository for ideas and suggestions on what to cover in streams going forward. So the question in the chat room there was, what about the backend? Plan to publish that eventually. So the answer to that, Kim, is yes. I absolutely. So it is. It's on my. It's GitHub. It's public on here. You can get access to it. The code's there. I want to publish it, but based on how I've seen it react tonight, with more than just me in the chat room, I don't think it's ready. So I may put out an initial release just to get some feedback on it, and have some people testing it out, I guess. So definitely something to look at. I would like to get it published just so I've kind of signed off on it on a release to have something out there. But that's where that is. So definitely I would like to have it published, yes, is the answer to that. Okay. So for now, I'm going to say that's it. I'm going to draw this to a close. So thank you all for coming. Special thanks, obviously, to Brandon for coming into the chat room and telling us more about his awesome open source project. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check it. Oh, I should say as well, I'll definitely. I should have done this right at the start. If I go to Open Collective here, and he probably won't do it himself, so I will do it for him. Brandon has a Open Collective for PoshBot. So if you're using it or you're interested in helping, where is it? It should be appearing here. PoshBot Open. Oh no, it's a Patreon. Sorry, my bad. Patreon. PoshBot. So if you are using it or interested in using it, definitely check out or throw some money at Brandon for everything that he's done over here. I am a happy Patreon subscriber to the PoshBot Patreon, so throw him some money because it's great. I can't say enough good things about it. So that's where you can find that information. I'm getting some stickers, and I love stickers. So I'm very happy to be in this supporter group on Patreon. So thanks again to Brandon for stepping in at the chat room. I really appreciate it. For now, though, I'm going to say goodnight and hopefully see you on the internet going forward. Right. Thank you very much.